Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It's a brand new week, a brand new book, and a brand new guest this year.
Hello.
I'm with my wife, Barbara, and I'm happy that she took on the task of coming to join us on the podcast today, or this whole week. Actually, she's going to be my guest the entire week as we talk about the Song of Solomon. So the theme of the Song of Solomon is love and marriage, and it's a little bit more comfortable for me to talk to you about this than maybe Jay or Zach.
No, I could see that.
But it's about uh, the power of beauty and love and its importance in a successful marriage. Um, the writer here is Solomon, so he examines this kind of from various angles um, in this book, and he advises us to experience it fully. He talks about the joys of physical attraction, the strength of marital commitment, the satisfaction that comes when we appreciate each other's qualities. Love is portrayed in the Song of Solomon as both passionate and mutual, um, but also respectful. And it talks about how it's an essential piece of lasting happiness. And so today's reading was Song of Solomon, chapter 2. And there's a particular verse, I'll read the verse 15. It says, "Catch all the foxes, those little foxes, before they ruin the vineyard of love, for the grapevines are blossoming." So there's a debate between some people, and for the most part, most scholars would say this is a very literal story. Like meant it's not a meant your love for Jesus. It really is marital love between a man and a woman. But he uses some things that we don't normally think about because most of us aren't gardeners. We don't think about foxes coming in and destroying our crops and those kind of things. And so a lot of the alliteration that he makes, the allusions that he gives, don't always set with us. But there are proverbs, and people will say, don't let the little foxes spoil the vine, and that's essentially what he's saying here. Make sure the foxes don't eat the grapes. And so the question that I want to start out with. So what little foxes, irritants, little things make marriage more difficult when we don't attend to them?
Well, I believe anything that repeatedly happens and you get that maybe eye roll or you get that when it happens can be an irritant that I think, if not dealt with, could be, you know, become bigger problems or um, the mood of the day can be ruined by little irritants, as, for example, strangling the toothpaste instead of pushing it from the bottom if you have that issue. Or,
And just to be clear, I'm not a toothpaste
no, he's
strangler.
not a toothpaste strangler, and I'm definitely not a toothpaste strangler, but I'm just saying, that could be it.
Right.
Or moving papers into neat little piles when other ones do not want them in neat little piles.
That could be a problem.
It could be a problem. I mean, they're little irritants, but if they repeatedly happen, we should have a conversation and see if we can, come to a mutual agreement to not keep allowing that.
Yeah, we often will point to the fact that statistics say that adultery is the leading cause for divorce. Money would be 2nd, and it could be either or. But in my personal experience in life and counseling and just observation in general, even things like adultery and money problems are the result of little things that weren't attended to
Right.
over time. And it can be as simple as not communicating well, not checking in, having conversations that you need to have, connection, physical connection, not just sex, but things like hand holding or kisses or, that slip in. I was trying to think of some, and I think some things are generic, so I think communication and connection are apply to everybody in
Yes.
some different way. Toothpaste strangling
Yeah.
is particular to maybe somebody's
Right.
relationship, and we have a kid that strangles his toothpaste.
Yes.
um,
I'm just trying to get at, the little irritants,
right.
like, they can build to make something bigger. If I think if you don't deal with the little things that repeatedly give you a bad feeling, that, because if I get tense towards you, it's going to come out in other
Mhm.
ways.
So how do you deal with those things? I mean, I think sometimes you have to overlook them. I
I
think
think there's
sometimes
some
you have
things
to
you have to
say,
overlook.
okay, this isn't
Yeah,
that big
you're
of a
right.
deal. And then I think there are other things you have to address. So how do you deal with it? How do you determine what rises to the level of I need to address this and what do I need to ignore? In your case, in your irritants with me, how do you deal with it?
Well, I can overlook some things, but I think well, for example, if I come to you and I say, if you could just put the dishes in the sink or put the dishes in the dishwasher, and you just could repeatedly do not do that when you easily can take care of something like that, then that's a very big irritant. And I believe if you come to me and say, hey, leave my papers alone, how I have them, I don't want you to move them, and I continually, constantly move your papers.
Hmm.
I think we
I don't
can
put dishes
leave.
in the dishwasher.
No,
I do put them in
you
the
put them
sink.
in the sink. But I'm just saying, you don't leave them. It's
Right.
little things that you don't that I ask you to do. If you can do it, I think you should do it. If it's not like if it just would if I feel like I can do something to help you be better. I've been better at leaving your papers alone. But I think I could,
I don't
we
even
have
have a
to
desk
over.
anymore, y'all. She has kicked me out of my office. She's taken over the office. She's got her own desk now. I don't have
That's
one.
probably not accurate. Anyways, we're going to have a debate right here. You like sitting in the living room in your recliner with all your stuff around you.
Yes.
And I'm a person that wants everything in its place.
Yes.
So I will take a picture of your little area and let everybody see that something I have overlooked. I have come to understand that
That's how I work.
this is how you work, and I have to get over it. You're containing it,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't
it's
get
not
much out of a
exactly
4x4
it's not
space.
exactly how I would contain it, but it's contained, and I've accepted it, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. We can live with that.
So how do you determine which is which though? What needs to be overlooked and what needs to be talked about?
I think well, I think things need to be talked about. I think if you can just mention, okay, this is bothering me. Can we solve it? I think, if it's easily solved, why not talk it and solve it? Don't just dig your heels in and say, well, she just needs to overlook that or he just needs to overlook that. Why not solve it?
Are there other things that you think? Well, I mean, because I'm sitting here thinking through, because my personality is different than
Mhm.
yours where this is concerned, and I typically will just block it out. Like if I don't like something and it doesn't look like it's going to get changed, I just kind of
Okay.
ignore it, you know. And how do you help couples that um their personalities are different and one wants to talk about the little things that are irritating them and the other person just ignores not just the concerns of the other person, but even things the other person does, they're able to just block it out. How do those people address those issues?
It takes time and prayer, and you have to talk. You have to talk some things out. You just have to learn. You have to learn each other, and you have to learn each other's personality type. That has been the Enneagram has been pretty helpful for me, and knowing your love languages. You have to work at it. You have to try to understand. I understand you as an 8, and you understand me as a 9. And I've learned to try to let things go that has been an irritant to me, but you just have to learn each other's personality and accept this is how you're hardwired and this is, what you're dealing with and what's more important.
Yeah, and I think that I, my observation is that if it's an irritant and it's been addressed and they don't fix it, and it's not a matter of integrity, so they're not, it's not like they're
Right.
texting somebody they shouldn't or looking at
Yeah.
things they shouldn't, that at some point the other party has to decide, okay, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to live with this and move on.
Well, that's what I was saying when you learn about your personalities and know how you're hardwired and how you deal with things. You have to learn each other. You have to, take the Enneagram test. Learn your I think learning your personality and how you respond, that has helped me figure out some things in me to help me to deal with some things in you, in your personality.
Yeah, and I think, that's true both ways, and um, and in general, the small things
Mm-hmm.
are not typically on my radar.
Yes, no.
Typically,
Right.
they're not, and um, it for the most part, like if 3 or 4 things are done in life, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, if this if one thing's out of place or something's not exactly right, or you know, uh, somebody in Chris from the stage looks at me and asks me a question about something, is this such and such and such? I was like, I'm the wrong dude to ask, like,
Right.
because I don't often think in those terms,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think having to understand that about one another and how we adjust and interact is a very, very important thing. And you either have to deal with the small things or you have to be done with the small things.
Oh,
You
sure.
can't, what can't happen
Mm-hmm.
is that it becomes an ongoing conversation forever and ever and ever and ever,
Right.
If we were joking about toothpaste
Mm.
before we got started, or yeah,
Strangling the toothpaste.
well, before we got started, we were having a
Oh, yeah.
conversation in here. The simple answer might be, you get your own toothpaste and I'll get mine. Like if it's that big of a
Yeah.
deal, that might be the simple thing, instead of every week or every day or every month saying, why do you do the toothpaste like
Right.
this? If that's the way they're going to do it, that's the way they're going to do it. And there's no reason to keep fighting about something that's not going to. Could it change? The answer is yes. Does it feel like a simple change? The answer is yes. But if
Right.
it ain't going to change, there ain't no need to argue about it. Like, put your time and energy in something that does matter,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens, the Bible talks about, nagging and complaining
Mm-hmm.
and, a constant drip of water. After a while, when you do need to speak to something that matters, if you have tick, 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 tick about everything, then when you do get to something that is a big deal, that they treat it like everything else, and they've got this wall up. And so I think at some point you have to decide, okay, this is the way it's going to be, whether it's my little 4x4 area that I keep my papers in. I got kicked to the curb. But or whatever that is, you have to say, okay, this is the way it's going to be. I'm not going to correct this. I'm just going to have to live with this.
Right.
There's some things you shouldn't live with. Okay.
Right. Oh.
You shouldn't live with verbal abuse. You shouldn't live with mental abuse. You shouldn't live with physical abuse. You shouldn't live with, adultery and pornography. I mean, those are things like you should put a stop to, but there are other things you have to say, okay, if this isn't going to change, I'm just going to deal with it.
And also, I don't think you should live with your other spouse just not caring, just
Mhm.
not listening. I mean, you can't. There's things that has to be addressed
Right.
too. Small things that has to be addressed. You just can't say, well, I don't want to deal with that, and I don't care. You'll get over it.
Right.
I think that's a bad attitude.
Yeah, I would
A
agree
wrong
with that.
attitude.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for joining us today. It ought to be an interesting week, so we hope you'll come back. I think tomorrow we're talking about sex, so you need to make sure you join in. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue our conversation about the Song of Solomon.